right now it's just, I just have no idea. There's so many variables involved to the point where I can't really read the market. So it's just believing in your products and just trying to maintain quality and pricing.
Cafes are the lifeblood of Melbourne, and I think we've never appreciated them more than over the past couple of years. Someone whose cafes I have been watching with great interest and enjoyment over, the past 5 or 6 or 7 years is Reiji Honour. He has Haiku Cafe in Camberwell and Future Canteen next door. Reiji, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thank you so much, Dani. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. So as I say, I've visited your cafes in different parts, I suppose mostly the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. They've slowly become bigger, more ambitious, more complex. Tell us about what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, so I kind of found my feet down here in these sleepy suburbs that you mentioned. And I've kind of hovered around Burwoody, Boxwood, and now I'm based in Camberwell, obviously under the name Haiku. And it's, I think everyone's kind of wrapped their head around the idea, but it's obviously Japanese fusioned cafe scene. A lot of inspiration is brought upon my home cooking with my mother, my Japanese mother. And it's just inspired into a bit of an opportunity to kind of morph both the brunch scene and Japanese techniques. And we do cafes and brunch obviously throughout the week. We've got a bit of an izakaya nighttime session happening as well on Thursday, Friday and Saturdays. And now recently opened the Future Canteen, which you just mentioned, which is more like a kombini concept, like a convenience store with all your little Japanese goods and bentos and things like that. Yeah.
And how did you get started? What made you want to go into cafes in the first place?
It just kind of occurred, I guess. Hospitality just seemed to click from such a young age. I started at Gloria Jean's, of course, at around 14. Found the service aspect really enlightening, and I did a William Angliss, a bachelor's degree as well, down here in Melbourne at Flagstaff, where I found a lot of my knowledge and obviously learning a lot of experience there. And then, so eventually found myself in management roles and then slowly kind of went into entrepreneurial road and, loving it, I guess.
Are you loving it?
Look, I did. Obviously this year, the amount of challenges that has been thrown, into the spanner of the works is just beyond anything I would have signed up for. But, once you're in knee deep, you can't really back out. So just kind of, just treading along.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, it's definitely that mix of creativity and optimism and just dogged determination that I suppose is getting a lot of businesses through this period. Let's just give people a bit more of a sense of what they might find at Haiku. What's some of the dishes that, people come back for?
Yeah, so Haiku's definitely, we do a seasonal change on the menu. So that's always great for our chefs as well as myself running the head chef side of things, as well as our customers being able to enjoy different dishes. But most definitely in terms of a signature, we're finding the te shuka concept, which is obviously your morning breakfast kind of set, kind of thriving right now. I think in a lot of locations, most Japanese cafes right now are pushing it out and the locals are definitely loving it. They're jumping on a board. So that one's definitely been a big hit. Of course, the okonomiyaki, which is your cabbage fritter dashi pancakes. That's been on the menu since day one. Still continues on as one of our strongest dishes. I'm pretty sick of shredding cabbage now, but otherwise, lunch times we definitely do like a good old Japanese curry. There's no fusion in that one. That's just a good old classic. But we just really like to push the boundaries a bit with our cuisine choices. We've morphed Turkish-inspired dishes with Japanese flavors, a lot of Middle Eastern touches as well, which I'm a big fan of. And we have some really great ideas coming up for summer as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, even when you say the word, a lot of Japanese cafes in Melbourne are doing this. It's so interesting how the landscape's changed over the past 10 years. And there are so many cafes that are differentiating themselves and trying, well, yeah, just incorporating all kinds of different influences. I mean, do you tell us about it from your perspective? Like, what do you find exciting about the cafe landscape and the opportunities for innovation?
Yeah, so obviously cafes kind of like the big scene in Melbourne, from a tourism aspect, from a local scene as well. And it's been so saturated, I guess, as of recently that, you've had to stand out, whether it's kind of like a deli concept, obviously that's flourishing right now, or maybe more niche items where we just focus on, if we're going to go to Japanese topics, maybe it's like mochi concept or pastries and things like that. So it's incredible to see the innovation coming out. And not to say that we're, part of that influence as well, but definitely having that signature of being Japanese is iconic to us and kind of created like a symbolism that we could continue to generate and keep the message really consistent across the board. And yeah, just obviously the cafe scene is quite hard to really push like against restaurants and things like that. So obviously it's something that I've been trying to push really well, trying to match that kind of level of quality, while still maintaining that relaxed environment of, having a cuppa and enjoying the background music. So yeah, it's great to see what Melbourne's doing right now.
And, the neighbourhood where you are, I suppose it's, there's a lot of different people in the eastern suburbs, of course, but it doesn't have a reputation of being particularly sort of edgy, I guess. Like, how do you strike that balance between innovation and I guess, satisfying your own creative urges and those of your team and looking after customers that perhaps, I don't know, don't want to have their boundaries pushed too much?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. If you look at like the map, obviously most Japanese cafes or restaurants tend to hover around the CBD, if not up north, where I guess the consumers up there are a bit more open to such ideas. But yeah, we've had to balance that very delicately between, maintaining that local, your classic poached eggs on toast with bacon kind of concept while still enticing others to get a bit adventurous. And luckily, we've found a nice little nook here in Camberwell where a lot of the locals are happy to kind of explore different flavors. And yeah, it's come to this point where they're pretty much, I guess they have confidence in us and believe in what we produce. And yeah, I don't mind to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I suppose what you're getting at is that trust that you build up. I mean, you've been there for quite a while. Under your first name, Hibiki, I suppose people really got to know you and trust you. And then even after the rebrand, it's, the same people. And yeah, I suppose people are happy to put their brunch in your hands, would you say?
Yeah, no, it's definitely great, especially like, on the weekends as well. We've got people traveling quite afar, just popping in, whether it's been, due to Instagram or the current trend of like Japanese breakfast and brunch scenes. But it's getting to the point where the locals are definitely wrapping their head around it. It gets a bit tricky, obviously, on the weekends. If it does get a bit busier, I can't satisfy everyone as much as, my regulars are the most important. But they're happy to wait, and obviously there's takeaway options, and with Future next door as well, it's allowed that opportunity for our name to continue on through a bit of a takeaway setup, and obviously branding sense as well. So yeah, no, people around here have definitely been amazing for us.
And yeah, tell us about Future and how did that spring up, and tell us about it? What are the aims over there?
So Future was a kind of a COVID born idea, I'd have to say. Having, been locked down for so long and facing the hard facts of running a business and without, putting bums on seats, it was quite very mentally challenging knowing that I couldn't really satisfy the whole original idea. So that kind of implemented a bit of a fear in us to the point where we thought, all right, let's jump online, and create an alternative space. Definitely, we started selling Japanese goods. I'm talking like good old mayonnaise, keeping mayo, otafuku, or anything kind of really originating from Japan. And we saw that moving during the lockdown. So, yeah, it definitely allowed us to make more room as well as growth. So we're trying to definitely rebrand with obviously the new name, new direction, and jump online from obviously our own matcha, our own coffee blends. We've got some hot chocolate blends getting launched and our own cold brew as well. So we really want to try and hit that local kind of very unique supplier, I guess, sense as well.
Yeah, really interesting because, I mean, it does feel like an aligned business, but it also has its own name and look and feel, and the offerings quite different. But it does, I mean, last time I came to the cafe, I was waiting a few minutes for a table and it was fantastic to go in there and browse for a while. So I guess it also operates as a bit of a holding pen.
Yeah, I wanted to create it to the point where it's kind of a destination in essence. So instead of just obviously coming in for a coffee and breakfast, it allowed you to maybe pick up a gift here or there, or maybe check out our merch, or, obviously our Japanese alcohol selection. So it's great to kind of building up a little bit of a location down here in Camberwell and try and show that East can be cool, I guess.
Totally. I mean, do you think, we've spoken in the last months about, the perennial problems of staffing and costs. None of that's getting, costs anyway, is not getting easier. I'd love to know what you think about staffing, but to put a pin in that for a sec. Do you feel like cafes need to have these multiple strands to their businesses these days?
Yeah, look, the costing front is definitely obviously one of the major topics of any owner, manager facing, head chef. That's probably the amount of stress that we are under at the moment to try and balance between, inflation costs, supplies running out of stock, drivers being late. It's amazing how many supply chain issues there are at the moment. But, we all managed to kind of pull through. But that being said, I think the cafe scene definitely, we've all seen prices rise quite substantially over the last, I'd say, few months. Maybe your normal poached eggs and toast is going for 12, even 13. I've seen some places it's like 14. But I think it's now as an educational sense to push that. Nighttime, we're happy to pay, close to $35, $40 for a pasta dish. Yet cafes, everyone's not happy to pay over 25. I think that's kind of a barrier that slowly needs to break down in order for, business to continue to thrive, I think. Yeah.
Well, how do you do that? Is it through what you put on a plate? Because, I mean, for example, you've got this barramundi brunch, which feels much more, it's pushing into a different area, and it does feel like the kind of dish you'd be prepared to pay more than for, eggs on toast. Is it that sort of thing, or what? Yeah, like what are some of the levers that you can pull?
Yeah, definitely. Like in specific to our menu, in this sense, we do kind of try and use higher end, produce, trying to stay locally, of course, as well, whilst still trying to keep our costs low. So, obviously we try and apply the food cost 30% margins and things like that. So we just got to be smart with prep as well as the type of fish or produce you use. But yeah, definitely like right now as well, moving into, I guess, harder times. I'm not too sure. Like I'm trying to remain skeptical, but for my next menu, I'm actually looking at trying to go on a bit more of a budget friendly approach. Try and be really smart with our food as well as, use leftovers and things like that. So as much as I'd like to push towards those dinner prices as well, I think now it's funnily enough going backwards.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So do you feel like you've sort of pushed the market sort of as far as you can, but now actually there's these other realities coming into play?
That's perfect. That's absolutely the nail on the hammer, I think. We definitely found sales a little bit, I think in general, I've heard across the industry from a lot of friends and fellow owners as well. We've all talked that recently our sales are definitely fluctuating more and more. Like it's getting very hard to read. So whether that is something to do with pricing. It's right now. It's just, yeah, I just have no idea. There's so many variables involved to the point where I can't really read the market. So it's just believing in your products and just trying to maintain quality and pricing.
Yeah, that's so interesting and just sounds a little bit nerve-wracking as well, because as you say, there are so many variables and you don't want to keep chopping and changing. But it must be really hard to move forward with confidence with changes. And when it also feels like you're not moving forward in a stable environment, it's like interest rates keep moving, who knows what's happening with petrol prices, et cetera, et cetera. It must be, quite challenging.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's had a couple of sleepless nights, but I'm starting to get used to it. Definitely using the lockdown as an example, if we can push through, being forced to stay home, curfews and things like that, we've survived this long, so there's no point giving up just yet. And I think hospitality tends to be quite hard. We're quite a bit of an army, I guess, tough-skinned. And we'll definitely pull through for this one.
What about, you've got the nighttime as well. What are you seeing there in terms of a willingness to pay a bit more or to come more often? How is that all shaking down?
Yeah, so our nighttime, the concept, which is Haiku kuro meaning black in this sense. So it's been a little bit of a trickier market as well. That only being said, I think the cafe itself is seen it's just so prominent as a cafe. It's quite hard to translate that into a nighttime setting, no matter how much lights you dim or how much louder you make the music or anything like that. But that's been a bit of a trickier market. However, like you said, nighttime, I feel people are more inclined to spend a bit more. It's obviously more of an opportunity to hang out with friends, social situations. Drinking's obviously involved. So that's definitely another focus point that I'm going to be making as one of my priorities coming this summer change as well. So we're going a bit more izakaya, so we're going very tapas vibes, so not too much big items and more of a sharing concept. And we have some great ideas planned for that one too.
That sounds cool. So it's more about, I guess, people just ordering a couple more things and then a couple more things and another drink rather than feeling like they're up for this massive commitment as soon as they walk in the door?
Yes, correct. Yeah. I think it's derived from the Japanese izakaya concept, which is it's kind of nasty, it's cheap, it's dirty, it's quick. That's the whole idea. You go out with your businessman or your salaryman and, drink till the boss goes home. I think that's the rule over there. So the idea behind it is obviously in that sense, but while still trying to promote the whole night concept around here, because obviously nighttime around here is a little bit, it's getting there very much slowly. We've had a cool wine bar open up across the road. We've had a pizzeria joint that's opened down the road as well. So it's definitely slowly making waves down here for sure. And I'd love to kind of make sure the local community has a spot to go for a cheeky little Japanese drinking hole. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. We touched on staffing. How is that? How are you finding that at the moment? Have things eased up at all? Have you got some strategies to help new people school up quickly? What are you doing?
Yeah, I think from last time we spoke, things were quite dire, wasn't it?
Probably.
Yeah, that was quite a tough few weeks and months for sure. But definitely, I think now for the first time, I've seen a bit of like a balance on both, jobs needed versus jobs wanted. And then I've definitely started to cross-train wherever I can to the point where today, for example, we've had a little kitchen hand running out food. He's actually setting up cutlery and things like that. So I myself, I'll jump in wherever I can. So yeah, it's just cross-training at the moment and working within the soul of the business to see where there's growth of opportunity with staff members coming through and trying to generate passion, I guess, for the industry, because it's a bit of a hard one. Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. I've actually haven't heard that term cross-train before, but it just seems like, take it out of the gym and into the cafe. I think that's so smart. Are you finding people are responsive to that? Are they sort of into it?
Yeah, it definitely has to come from a good working culture that, promotes it, their willingness to do it as well. So that itself is something that I've always underlined throughout my management. I'm trying to be as kind as I can where I can and be supportive. And then in turn, I guess it kind of gains respect, and, people are happy to take a bullet for the business. And it's beautiful to see people get passionate as well as really put their hands down and, yeah, just really push through, because obviously we really all need it. We all really need to do it right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you find that builds a lot of empathy between different roles in the business when people are sort of taking a bit of a load off someone?
Oh, absolutely. That's perfect as well. It's great to open up their perspectives. I think perspective is so critical, in understanding the pressure points across any part of the business, whether it's the maitre d', the barista, runners, the dishwasher, the pass, and obviously the mains and the chefs and things like that. So it's getting to the point where front of house and back of house is really engaging with one another, and to the point where we're just getting along like, two peas in a pod. It's it's quite I think it's quite rare to see that in a front house, back of house environment, but it's great to cross that bridge in a nice manner.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So for people who are listening to this who might want to, get a few nuggets of wisdom from your management experience across all different businesses, what kinds of things have you noticed, or what do you do either explicitly, or that you just notice yourself doing that does promote a really good staff culture?
Yeah, so definitely, I know a lot of people say, as an owner, you should work on the business rather in the business. And there's definitely a fine line between that as well. Like I agree to that to a fair degree, but, at the end of the day, you should really be involved if you're really passionate about it. I mean, how can you understand, maybe a head chef's position if you've never been in their shoes? So that's definitely something I try and always convey to them, that I'm there with them. I'm there with you. We're in war together. To the stage where I'm kind of like their staff, just a team member as well. Talk to one another as friends, but still maintain that professionalism, of course, by gaining respect from one another as well, rather than, enforcing anything through, orders and such things like that. So, yeah, it definitely does take a toll on myself, of course, mentally, but at the same time, the gratitude that comes out of it is, I guess, it's priceless in that sense. But yeah.
Wow, that's really, it's quite profound, Reiji. I love that. It's really good. I'd love to talk about coffee, because I know you're a bit obsessed with it, and I am too, and Melbourne and Australia certainly is. What are the trends that you're seeing in coffee at the moment?
Well, coffee, definitely the whole specialty side of things has always been booming, hasn't it, for the past decade, I'd say. It's been coming out. Our coffee scene itself, we've kind of it was interesting, you've mentioned before, trying to balance between the local, safe scene as well as the adventurous one. So that comes down to our bean as well. We're trying to balance in between the two to have that fruity approach whilst maintaining kind of a robust chocolatey sense as well. So that's our house blend, which is unique to us. But we've also kind of started delving into Japanese roasted coffee as well. So that's something we've really enjoyed. Our head baristas loved playing with different roasters, so we get in contact with a lot of roasters in Japan, very small little micro roasters as well. And then they send us a cheeky little shipment, and we follow their orders, and we just produce a sort of local scene, can have a taste. Obviously, roasting is very different in each location, I think. Japan is quite profound, actually, for their filter coffees as well. So, yeah, definitely the coffee scene is booming, of course. But I guess interesting right now is the price facts, I think, with coffee. Yeah.
What's happening with price?
Back in the days, we were quite happy with paying, what's the average now? Maybe $4.20, is it? I'd say, give or take. Yeah, so that's definitely something we're trying to keep to as well. I myself can't see myself paying more than $4.50, even though I say this as an owner. But I guess, with the increasing wages and everything like that, the irony in all this is that we're happy to pay for a milkshake that's just what, chocolate cream, a bit of a syrup for like $8-9, yet a coffee bean that gets, roasted, delivered, and then on a machine that's like as expensive as your car with skills that take years of experience. Quite price sensitive on that. So that's always been an interesting thing for me.
Totally. I mean, they're really great analogies. Yeah, well, I mean, so as a customer, you want to pay $4.50. How much do you want to charge as an owner?
Well, I'd love to do my best to look out for, everyone's obviously, the wages right now is something that's, had to be done. It had to be changed, to support our industry, to make sure it's still enticing, to make sure staff are getting, what they deserve. So that's obviously an increase over the past, I guess, year, I'd say. Obviously, the minimum wage has risen quite substantially with inflation costs. I mean, our milk is still going up as we speak. Our coffee is still relatively staying the same. So, yeah, it's just being smart and trying to use alternative supplies and things like that. But I think $4.50 is probably a reasonable amount, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't reckon I would blink at $4.50 anywhere. Yeah. And quite often coffees are $5.
Yes, absolutely. When you start throwing in alternative milks, weekend charges and things, I think people are starting to get used to it, which is it's great to see, because the amount of love and time, taken into pouring a cup is actually it goes down quite a long way. So yeah.
Totally. I mean, yeah, the standard is so high that, yeah, it feels like the price shouldn't lag too far behind. But Reiji, I'm really ignorant about Japanese roasting and why it would be so different to roasting in Australia. What's the deal there?
I do believe the Japanese roasting style of things is much more on a lighter approach, to the point where obviously single origins is quite a focal point for them to really express that flavor of the beans. So I know Japan likes to roast a bit lighter, that way they don't overburn any, profiles and things like that. So yeah, I think that just seems to working out really well. And we've loved having the chance to really, educate the local community as well on like different suppliers, different locations, whether it's Tokyo, whether it's Osaka. It's great to maybe become like a little distributor in a sense, because we also sell it online on the Future side of things as well on our website. So, and yeah, we've been selling like hot rockets there as well. So definitely there's a scene here as well, and would love to keep pushing it.
Yeah, that's so cool. All right. Well, you mentioned you're going to change a few things up for summer. Can you give me a little sneak peek on one of the summer dishes that I should try next time I come in?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, what have I got going on? We're going to do like a kind of like a fusion. So in Japan, like we don't really use duck much at all. In fact, we only use it in kind of a soba sense. So what I'm actually doing is we're going to be doing like a duck confit, like a teriyaki braised leg, and that's going to be the Benedict, which we always put on like a little rice base rather than toast, which has become iconic. That's going to be topped with some pickled fennel, and then kind of like a duck tsuyu broth, which is pretty much like a shiitake kombu dashi base. We've got some soba chips getting thrown into it as well. And then this like a Japanese, like a hollandaise, which is called kimizu, which is using Japanese vinegar rather than the white vinegar. So it's got this citrus hit. So that's going to be a big one, I hope.
It sounds amazing. And okay, I would pay, I reckon, $28.50 for that. What are you going to charge?
Well, I'd have to look at the numbers as well on that one. Duck isn't the cheapest poultry out there, but I'd probably try and stick to around 23, 24.
It's such a bargain.
I know. I'm still trying to. I'm still a bit scared, I guess, of the current environment, the confidence as well. But yeah, no, that's definitely going to be a great dish, I think, for summer. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. All right, maybe $26.50.
Okay, let's do 20-50.
Let's meet in the middle, but don't undersell yourself. Okay, Reiji, it's really great to have a chat with you. Is there anything else that you want to say?
No, that's really it. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. Always love seeing what you're up to. And all the best with juggling those many balls and feeding the good people of Melbourne. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks again, Dani.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtyLinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This